Welcome to the Wake Up Dad Show. This is episode number 5.
It's really where you got to step up and be a man. Until that point, you can be quite selfish and, worry about your own needs and wants.
Are you confused and overwhelmed about your role in all the craziness that is being a dad? Are you struggling to create the life you hope for? Are you looking for other dads to share your struggles and your triumphs? Or do you just need help waking up in the morning? Join your host, Dr. Scott Vatcher, as he explores the amazing and sometimes crazy world of being a dad. This is the Wake Up Dad Show.
With me on the show today is Dr. Anthony Golle. Dr. Anthony Golle has been studying human wellness for over 2 decades. His professional training is in exercise physiology, chiropractic, and neuro linguistics. He's the CEO of Body Brilliant Wellness Center, founder and trainer at Firewalking Australia, and executive producer of the top health documentary Overfed and Undernourished that is receiving international acclaim. Dr. Anthony's desire for understanding human wellness was sparked only after he almost died from meningeal, how do you say that? Best at physical training, a national title for Tae Kwon Do and representing Australia at the World Championships Hawaiian Ironman. And has worked for Olympic athletes like, say it for me, Anthony? Tatiana
Grigorieva. She was.
Who is she?
She won a silver medal at the for pole vault.
For pole vault.
And she was on that show, Gladiators. She was one of the hot gladiators.
Pretty cool. And also celebrities like Anthony Hopkins and Anthony Robbins. His passions now fulfilled linking arms with other inspired wellness warriors, helping thousands of people every month with his online program, the Tribal Wellness Movement. Dr. Anthony's great source of joy is his marriage to his high school sweetheart, Tae Golle, for 14 years, and their 3 children, Zavier, Bodhi, and Zara. Welcome to the show, Dr. Anthony.
Good to be here. When you put it all there at once, it's cool.
Yeah, it's great to hear it, isn't it? I was going to read it out, very professionally, and then have you introduce yourself a little bit afterwards. But I saw some words in there that I got a little tongue-tied. So thanks for helping me out there.
Help a brother out. I like
So, we got an intro there, and, if anyone knows Anthony, he is an all-or-none kind of guy. He's all in, and he gets stuff done. So let's start out by, tell us a little bit about your story becoming a dad.
I always had a really strong affinity for kids. So when I played soccer as a early teen, I was already coaching little kids. My dad was a swim coach, and so I'd always help him. And I just always loved kids. And when I was with Kate, it was very early in our conversations about our children and our children's names. So it was always there. And then my wife had done some detox programs for Anthony Robbins. And so I think parenting for us was always a very a conscious decision. It wasn't happenstance. Again, I remember listening to an Anthony Robbins audio and just some of the things that the speakers on that were talking about in parenting. And this is, in my late teens, early 20s. So for whatever reason, innately, it was always there that I wanted to be a good dad. And so, for Zavier, our first, it was very planned. We did a whole detox together, and, it was the home birth. And but, man, still, no one gives you the manual that tells you everything, what it's going to be and how it's going to work out.
Where is that secret manual?
And just, there's sleep deprivation and, the person you become with not that much sleep and coordinating relationship and business and all of that. It's a journey, and I was thinking this is great because we always knew we wanted to have 3 kids, and most things in life you do it a second and third time and it gets easier, but man, they've all just got different characteristics and different needs and behaviors, but it's cool. So they're 4, 6, and 8 now, and I've got to say it's definitely easier now that they're a little bit self-sufficient.
A little bit older makes all the difference, doesn't it? Now, I've only got one child. She's 6, and just being able to wake up in the morning and pour a bit of almond milk on her coconut cereal, boom, done.
Yeah. And it's funny, and I don't know if I'm going off track here, but I definitely started to read around different timings and when different hormones come in, even at their younger ages. And it's almost to the day we can see it in our kids. And our eldest Zavier has definitely been a challenge. He's very touchy and definitely not conducive for a classroom. And likes to stir the pot in the house, and Bodhi was just like this little angel kid, and then it's always in perfect balance, right? And literally in one day we wake up and Bodhi's a monster, and Zavier's downstairs and he's 8 and he's already chopped up everything for my omelette and he's got toast on and he's packed his bag and he's ready for school, and I'm just scratching my head going, this is nuts. And I mean, it's only an early journey, right? You speak to people with kids and they're already in their teens, and that's a whole nother chapter. But yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. You think the challenges, they don't go away, they just change. I'm sure there'll be dads listening to this show who have newborns, maybe even not even dads yet, and then dads with kids who are teenagers, even empty nesters who the kids have already left the house, and they never stop being your kids.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've got a buddy, and he, Arne Rubinstein, I'd actually encourage people to have a look into his work. He wrote a book, The Making of Men, and he's a great ritual. Both his boys are grown up, I think in their early 20s, and they make a habit to connect every year for an overseas holiday. So they'll go on a surf safari or skiing and things like that. But he says, he still holds headspace every day for where they're at and what are they doing. And, I think about that. I think about the last 8 years, how fast it's gone. And I think that's the big thing. People, it's like, when they're at school or when they can do this, life will be easier. You don't want to wish it away. You really want to enjoy and cherish every single phase and soak it up. So... yeah,
it's a real dichotomy, isn't it? Because, those, I don't know what you might call them, shit phases with the kids that, just the difficult phases, you think, I can't wait for this one to be over. But then when it's over, you're like, well, it's over. That's it. When does that next thing come along to experience again? So, it really is a dichotomy of trying to be in the moment, but knowing that it's not going to continue to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll put that book in the show notes page for anyone who's listening. Check out the show notes, and I will have the author and the name of that book on there for you. So this show is dedicated to dads, obviously, and dads, not just any dad, not those deadbeat dads that don't want to change, but dads who want more, dads who have fallen asleep, though, As we both know with young kids, it's really easy to sort of lose out on some perspective, about lose yourself, who you are as a man, as a dad, as a lover, as a person. And so I've created sort of the five categories or main areas that need to be addressed in what I call dadhood. And those are purpose, power, parenting, providing, and passion. So let's go back. Purpose means, the reason why you're here, your legacy, what you're going to leave behind. Power is all about optimal health, your exercise, your diet, etc., about taking control of your life. Parenting is pretty obvious, to be the best version of ourselves for our kids, our partners. Providing is all about, it's a bit of a stereotypical role as a dad to be the provider, but I think that's still the case in most families, and at least a partial situation where most dads are at least doing some of the providing. So I think that's an important one to look at, especially in the entrepreneurial world where there's so much more going on there. And then passion in our relationships, because again, as a dad with young kids in particular, but kids of any age, it's probably pretty easy to put passion on the back burner. So with those 5 Ps, which one would you like to talk about as far as struggle? Which one are you potentially struggling with the most now or in the past and have overcome?
Buddy, I think, clearly passion, especially in the early days. Just the physicality of having another being in the house, in between you, hanging off your partner's body parts that you want to be attached to. It's just, and I think it's really where you got to step up and be a man. Until that point, you can be quite selfish and worry about your own needs and wants, especially in that area. And then all of a sudden, it's like, gosh, you're not number one, out of necessity. And I think for me, really hard, really tough. And then, we had, as I said, every 2 years you're having another baby. So it's a fairly vast period, and just changes in hormones for the woman. And, I think that urge is still always there as the man. So, buddy, that's definitely been something. And I guess the communication around that as well. You don't want to come across to your wife and needy and what about me, which is very, very, very boyish.
Poor me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there with being attached to body parts that you want to be attached to, because, in particular, in that sort of holistic role of becoming, or being the best parents, a lot of women try and breastfeed. And, and what that means is there's a lot going on there for a long period of time, depending on how long you decide to breastfeed. Now, there's lots of reasons not to, and that's not the discussion I'm getting into here now, but it's more that idea of, you got to share. There's got to be some sharing going on now. You got to grow up and start doing that and being a man, like you said.
Totally.
And so, go ahead.
And I think, as it gets older, there's routines and rituals and lessons to teach the children of how we roll as a family, and mummy and daddy need their cuddle times, and so it definitely gets easier. But again, when you go from young lovers and you kind of as the mood strikes, off you go, compared to having to really plan. And it's like, that's not how I want it. I just on spur of the moment stuff. And it's like, no, we can do it on that day because the kids are there and they're there, and that's all, I used to say to Kate, this is ridiculous. It's like all the stars have got to line up and the moon and just brush the things together. I'm like, so that honestly, that's it's probably been the struggle for sure.
And interestingly, in it's almost the opposite in our relationship. I was the one trying to plan things, and my wife was, no, it's got to be spontaneous. The spontaneity is really, really important in this type of situation. And I was like, well, hello, that doesn't work so well sometimes either. So it's really interesting to get that balance between spontaneity and practicality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go ahead.
I think the slippery slope is just going, it's too hard, and going, oh, well, we'll just put that on hold, that aspect of our life. And I think, when there's not intimacy, it can easily become the friendship. And the one thing I learned from, I'm going to name drop again here, there's a guy named David Data who wrote a book, The Way of the Superior Man. And there's a chapter in there that really struck me. It's like you can have a friendship with anyone, but there's only one person, well, depending on beliefs and, connotations, but there's one person who you can have intimacy with. And so the defining factor of your partner is intimacy. And so if that's not there, as I said, I think it's a slippery slope to not work at it. But what came, just spontaneous and natural before, now it's like, gosh, we got to plan this. And like anything, if you don't put a plan in, then it's likely not to happen. So I think that's the challenge that can be the demise of some relationships come family units, to go, well, that's not important.
I totally agree, and I don't know what the stats are, but they're phenomenal with divorce within the first few years of having a child. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons. Having a kid is stressful. There's a lot of extra things. I joke with people who've had kids recently and go, think back to before you had kids. Now, think, what did you do with all your time? Where did it go? There's so much time involved in raising kids and being a dad that you don't even realize where did all that extra time go before the kids were there. So it's a really important thing to make it work, to focus on that as a big one. I fully agree with you there. So I think we've sort of turned that around a little bit. My next question was going to be, I grew my kid to look at me as a superhero. I don't know if you do the same. But, your kids look up to you sometimes as being a superhero. Which of those 5 Ps, purpose, power, parenting, providing, or passion, do you feel is your superpower right now?
Oh, gosh. Can I combine 2?
Sure.
It's your show. I think, my background as a health provider, the power part, it's so ingrained in our parenting style. So definitely parenting with a strong splash of the power there. And what I mean by that, our kids, they could get up and teach a workshop for 30 minutes on nutrition or, the power of whole foods or innate intelligence and things like that. Just because that's what we value. And I think that's some of the values we instill in them. But again, it was very important to us and especially me to be a good dad and a great parent. And so I guess when we look at our year, I don't know if you've ever seen that metaphor of the beaker and you've got your rocks and your pebbles and the sand and the water. And, if you fill it with water, then there's no room for the sand or the rocks. So filling your life with the big things, the things that you value the most. So when we look at our year, we'll plan it around those things. And the most important thing for us is magic moments, or what we call epic family adventures. And so we'll put those into our calendar and lock them in first. And then when we kind of scale that back to a monthly basis, we'll make sure that we get away for some kind of adventure, whether it's stand-up paddleboarding or go climb a mountain or stuff like that. And then bringing that right back to the daily routine. So, yeah, being ex-military, my kids get a little splash of that. And so they can definitely rattle off what their morning routine is. Doesn't mean they do it necessarily, but they can definitely say it. But they've got a morning routine, an afternoon routine, and also a going to bed routine. And I think it's so easy to be busy, and every day we don't quite do it. But there's this one day I said to Kate, we're just spending a day and we're going to practice this routine because I can't stand having to go over and over, put your shoes away, put the bag away. The lunchbox goes on the counter. And so we did. We just drilled it like military style, but now life is a breeze because it's like, your routine. Have you done it? Yes, no, let's roll. So, parenting, super important. And I think, the slippery slope is between taking on that identity as the dad, as the provider, and going, all right, I need to provide things and money and security, when in actual fact, I think the biggest thing kids need is just time, quality time. And so often we find ourselves in a role where we're, busting our butt and thinking we're doing a great job, but all our kids really want is to be there for them. And so, again, we've worked really hard at our lifestyle choices so we can be there for key moments for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great sort of thought. I've seen something similar floating around on the old Facebook feed with, the kids' greatest currency is time. And, it's true, because I think in our world anyway, in Australia and Canada, I know there'll be people listening, America, through the UK, et cetera, in that sort of first world country, we put a very big emphasis on that providing and of things rather than time. So it is really important to somehow figure out that balance, because I know it's easier said than done, that's for sure. But in the end, you're not going to regret spending more time with your kids.
Yeah, and this is the thing I learned. I did have an opportunity where I was actually spending a lot of time, and within an hour they were bored of me and they were off playing with their friends. And I realized it actually wasn't a lot of time. It was very present, intense, quality time doing the things that they love. Because again, I think as a parent, we kind of go, it's my role to instill values into you. And I think it couldn't be further from the truth. Obviously, we need great characteristics to live as a great human being, but probably an example might be better. When I say to the kids, what do you want to do today? And we live by the beach, I'm thinking, well, obviously we're going to go to the beach and play in the water and, play in the dunes. And they'll be like, oh, can we go throw sticks in the park? And in my head, I'm like, well, that's a freaking stupid idea. That's not fun. But off we go and we throw sticks in the park and they're lit up, And so just, time, but, very specific time that they value. And I think the telltale for me at least is when my kids are lit up, they're hanging off me. They're grabbing me. I love you, Dad. Oh, this is awesome, Dad. So they let you know.
Yeah, and lots of times they let you know, and sometimes I think maybe they don't. And that's just realizing that they're their own little person, just like we're our own people, and we all have our own thoughts and ideas. And surprisingly, at such a young age, sometimes your kid comes up with something like, where did that come from? Like, we never talk about that, or whatever the case is. But every individual person has their own set of experiences in life that give them who they turn into.
Absolutely.
So let's switch gears just a little bit there. I mean, we talked about setting up routine for kids. Do you have anything? Well, I know that you're doing something right now. We very briefly discussed it in the pre-show about having a daily routine for yourself as a dad, as a man, as an entrepreneur, etc., to get the best out of your day. Do you want to tell us about your 100-day challenge? Is that what you called it?
Yeah. We had this discussion earlier, just us as professionals and becoming possibly stagnant in the thing that we were really passionate about. And I remember as a student, I would get up well before the sun and I would go through this routine of visualization and meditation and affirmations and listen to speakers and, do your vision board and all that stuff. And then it was probably a couple of years ago, I was just like, man, I feel really flat. But I look around and everything I ever wanted, it's there. And then it dawned on me, you've got it, but you don't have a next vision for where you want to be and what you want to do in the next 10 years. It's kind of like, you've reached the destination, but you feel flat because you're not growing. And then I thought, man, I've stopped doing the things that got me to become the person I am. And you're into a new chapter, a new phase of life. And one of the things you said there is about having a legacy. And so Yeah, I came across a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and he talks about an acronym called SAVERS, SAVERS. And I didn't learn anything new. That's the first thing I'll say about the book. But he just packages it so well and in stories that it's like, man, I really got to get back to doing this. And so the S is for silence. So to sit in silence, whether you meditate, pray, whatever it is. But it's really just about being still. The A is for affirmations. V is for visualization. E is for exercise. R is read. And S is for scribe, so to write or journal. And the great thing about it, there's the 6 things, and if you spend 10 minutes on each, that's a nice little hour package to start your day. Or if you're cranked and you just got to get going, you can still do at least a minute of each. And so it was just a cool little thing that I started following. And then in the past, consistency has probably been not a great character trait of mine. Like Scott said, I'm kind of all or nothing, but I'll do something full tilt and then run out of steam, and then it's like squirrel and get distracted. Move on to the next thing. So I wanted to have some accountability, and so my online team, I was like, everyone's got to get the book, and we're all doing it together. And I thought, I'm going to take a picture every morning of myself, and I'm going to do 100 days of this thing. The book says 30 to change a habit. I'm going to do 100 because that's what the American Indians did. And so anyway, taking pictures every day, and like I was just on fire. And I think I got today, I'll have to look back at my Facebook feed. I think I got to day 24, and I don't know what happened. I just stopped doing it. And it's crazy because I was more productive, more lit up, a nicer person, more patient, a better husband, just by doing that and setting some intention for the day, getting good stuff into my mind. Traditionally, I can't stand stuff like meditation and yoga. I'd rather go lift something or kick something or rip something up. But definitely need that kind of yin to balance me. And so, I think it's probably 2 weeks I haven't done it now. And I was just saying to Scott, day 1 will commence on Monday again. But, a great book, great process. And I think, I used to do this in the past where if I missed a day, I'd beat myself up and kind of, I'm not good enough. Whereas now I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of moving parts to my life. And part of it was we went to Fiji, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this while I'm on holidays. And I'm okay with that. And I'll just come back. And I think there's a great lesson there. When there's too many rules, especially as a parent, like something's always going to be wrong. There's always going to be something out of place, something the kids didn't do, I didn't do, my partner didn't do. And if there's such strong rules around that, it's very easy to have a lot of negative emotions. Whereas if we just kind of ebb and flow and there's some flexibility in that, I think it makes for a little bit more of a smooth journey.
Yeah, it's a great concept idea. I love that because it's so true. When you're on your own, or even just you and your partner without kids, you can get away with being a lot more structured, a lot more strong, hard rules. But, you throw kids into the mix and there's got to be more ebb and flow because that's just life. So it's okay that doesn't happen. And like you said, I think it's a balance between, not being too hard on yourself, but then also being hard enough on yourself, realizing that, like you said, now you're getting back into it on Monday to go, listen, if I want to achieve what I want to achieve in my life, then these are some things that need to be done. So I'm going to get back to it, but not beating yourself up because you took a break on holidays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So, I mean, maybe that is your message, but if you had 2 minutes in front of a room of 1,000 dads that were eagerly listening, what would be your greatest sort of wake-up dad message to them?
The advice that was given me from Arna Rubinstein. So he was a medical doctor who started doing men's work, and really loved it and realized so many adult problems were a result of unresolved childhood issues. And so I took my son on a young warriors camp. So he's put about 25,000 kids through a rites of passage over the last couple of decades. And because he studied all the different indigenous cultures and realized it was one thing they all had in common, that there was a formal rites of passage, and it was acknowledged by the community, and there was a very deliberate delineation between boy to now you're a man, and this is what it means, and these are the responsibilities. And it's just so lacking in I think our society, in our culture. Our excuse for a rites of passage is schoolies or stuff like that, right? And so I remember him saying that the greatest way to connect with your child is to tell stories about when you were a boy. And I do it most nights now. So I either read to them or I'll just tell them a story. And my gosh, they are just on the edge of their beds, asking questions, eyes as big as owls. And you tell them everything. You tell them when you were naughty, you tell them when you got in trouble, and it really bridges that gap between the generations, because they realize, you were a boy, you did naughty things, and they feel super connected to you. So that's a massive takeaway for me. That's, one of the golden nuggets, I think, for me as a parent. And then the second one is tell them that you're proud of them. And be specific. And those two things have been absolute gold for me. And I just see their little hearts open and the connection that we have. And then the third one is the routines, the rituals. The other thing that we're very strong on is, and I encourage people with kids to do, is we always have a meal together. It's typically the evening meal. And the kids instigate this question, what are you grateful for today? And it teaches them to really think about that. And it's amazing. It's amazing what comes out their mouth some days. Like you said, oh my gosh, this is profound. And then we're also really strong on making sure the other children and we are very present while they're speaking. And we teach them to listen with their ears, but also their eyes and their heart. And so just that skill set of that little routine of being grateful and how to listen to someone, I think just creates incredible character for them to grow into, whoever they're going to be, but, just to be a great human being. So that was my 10-minute.
No, that was brilliant. I think people will need to take some notes about that, or just re-listen over and over again to those last few. I really like that. So just to circle back on that, I think really important when you tell them that you're proud of them, like you said, be specific. And what you mean by that is to tell them what you're actually proud of, because when you utilize that term that you're proud of somebody without putting in the reason why, it doesn't really mean that much. But as soon as you put a reason to it, they're able to basically take it on a lot better, and it makes such a massive difference.
Yeah, and catch them doing great stuff. So, today I saw when Zara slipped over and your first reaction was to go over and pick her up and say, are you okay? Man, I was so proud of you in that moment. And it's like, wow, it just really conditions, that character trait, that behavior.
Yep. That's such a good lesson. And back to people who are international speakers, when Anthony talked about schoolies as a rite of passage. Basically what schoolies is, it's a tradition here in Australia where when you graduate high school, you go off for a big party for a week. So that's it. It's really not much of a rite of passage. And then the next biggest one is the 21st birthday, which is basically just a big piss up for most people. So I do fully agree with you that the rites of passage from being a boy to a man or a girl to a woman are just not really celebrated in our society for the most part for a lot of people. So that's a really good point. So Give me something. Dads love their gadgets, apps, books, games, exercise. What's something that you are just loving at the moment?
I think I already gave all my good bits away. I'm loving more things. David Data's work was a game changer for me. I read that book every year because I think the habit or the initial instinct of us as guys often is the exact opposite of what we should do. And it was like this whole game of life as a man and having a feminine partner and us being masculine. To me, I used to describe it as a game that the goalposts are always moving. And I was like, business, got that, know how to do that. Sport, know how to do that. Kids, know how to do that. But the whole dynamic of a relationship, until I read this book, and it started to explain the masculine and feminine and the polarity between the two, and how a man needs purpose and they need the drive, and they don't want a partner that has that, because otherwise you create that depolarization. So David Data's stuff, I definitely love. As far as routines, for me at the moment, it's not an app or anything. I actually just love getting into nature. And we're very fortunate here. Right out the front of our house, there's a huge pod of dolphins that surfs every day. And so I go out there on the stand-up paddle and just, as foo-foo as it sounds, connect with them. But the whales are coming through, and the whales, as they come through, the dolphins have been surfing on them. And God, if you want to check this out, please have a look at my Facebook page, because these whales come up, and I nearly got knocked off my board the other day. But I just have this overwhelming sense of just observing them and being in flow. And I look at them and go, they just cruise. They don't have to be anywhere or do anything. They just going through life. And I think it's such a contrast to our busy but empty lifestyles that so many of us take on. So that's me, dude.
Busy but empty. That is a huge takeaway. Awesome. Love it. So you mentioned your Facebook page. Give us a little bit of contact details. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more? Basically, from you, about your, we didn't really get too much into it, but if you want to give your 1 minute spiel on what your tribal wellness movement is so people can understand that if they do want to get in touch with you about it.
Yeah, sure. I do have a public profile, which is Dr. Anthony Golle. I never use it. Don't go to that one. Just my name, Anthony Golle. Connect through that. I mentioned earlier about just, being conscious that what we provide, in contrast to parenting, can be a slippery slope because we want to provide for our kids and we do business a lot. And so I was just looking at some of the voids in society and our health statistics and how quickly they're going downhill of cancer and diabetes and heart disease and all of that. And then also how much people use technology. Most people live on social media, Facebook, Instagram, things like that, and just saw a way to meet the two. And so we created an online wellness program where people have eating guides and exercise programs and base nutritional whole foods. And I put this together with over 300 people across the world, naturopaths, chiropractors, medical doctors, health coaches, personal trainers. And so Tribal Wellness Movement is a platform where people can use the program as a consumer, but also if you have a need and a want to create a residual income online, that's certainly something we can teach you to do through the program. So for me now, I get to spend a lot of time doing the things that I love and with my kiddies, just because I've set that part of my life up and very passionate about helping other people to do that as well so that they can live that, the 5 Ps to the full.
Fantastic. So thanks again, Dr. Anthony Golle, for that awesome discussion. Guys, go ahead and check out the website, www.thewakeupdadshow.com. Go to iTunes, give us a rating so we can reach more dads like you. And my email is drscott@thewakeupdadshow.com if you want to throw me a line, ask me any questions about anything. So thanks again, Dr. Anthony.
Thank you, buddy. Really love what you stand for, love the message, and we need more of it.
Do you want to know more about the Wake Up Dad movement? Go to www.thewakeupdadshow.com to download any and all past issues of the show, claim your free gift, or to directly ask Dr. Scott any questions you have. Continue the conversation on the Facebook group Wake Up Dad. Share this podcast with other dads on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure to subscribe to the show and give us a rating so we can reach more dads. And dads, one last thing. Wake up!